One afternoon, the classroom was empty. My professor looked at me and said, "Leah, you are special, but you must give me something in return." His eyes were heavy, his voice low. I felt fear, but also anger. I knew this was not right. From that moment, a secret fight began between us. A fight of power, fear, and truth. You will not believe what happened in the end. It will shock you. When I entered college, I was full of dreams. I wanted to study hard and make my parents proud. My name is Leah. To support myself, I worked part-time at a cafe, cleaning tables and serving coffee. At night, I often stayed up late reading books under a small lamp, my eyes tired but my heart determined. In my second year, I met Professor Mark. He was respected, smart, and his powerful voice filled the classroom. At first, I admired him. He often noticed me, asked me questions, and praised my answers in front of everyone. I thought he was only being kind. I never knew his attention was about to change my whole life. One afternoon, Professor Mark asked me to stay after class. The room slowly emptied as my classmates laughed and packed their bags. My heart beat fast, unsure why he wanted me. He smiled and said, "Leah, you are one of my brightest students." His words made me blush, but then his voice softened. "You should come to my office sometimes. We can discuss your future." I nodded politely, clutching my books tightly. When I left, my roommate Anna was waiting near the gate. "Why did he keep you back?" she asked curiously. I replied quickly, "Nothing. He just gave advice." But deep inside, I felt strange, as if his eyes had followed me long after I left the room. A week later, I decided to visit his office. I knocked softly, and he welcomed me with a warm smile. He offered me coffee, asked about my family, and leaned too close when he spoke. I felt my skin crawl. Then he said, "You could go very far, Leah, but success is not only about books, it's also about who supports you." His words felt heavy, almost like a warning. I left quickly, pretending I had another class. When I got back to the dorm, Anna noticed my silence. "What did he say?" she asked. I shrugged and lied, just normal teacher stuff. But that night, while writing notes, my hands shook. I couldn't stop replaying his strange words in my mind. Things grew worse during exams. I worked harder than ever, memorizing notes, practicing past papers, and skipping my cafe shifts to study. But in class, Professor Mark gave me strange smiles. One day, he slipped a folded note on my desk when no one was looking. My heart froze. It said, "Come to my office tonight." I crumpled it quickly before anyone could see. That night, I told Anna about the note. She frowned and said, "Don't go, Leah. He's crossing a line." I tried to laugh it off, but fear filled me. If I refused, would he punish me? If I went, what would he do? I walked circles around the dorm room that night, torn between fear and confusion. Finally, I chose not to go. The next day, Professor Mark looked at me with cold eyes. During class, he ignored me and praised others. When I gave an answer, he said, "Wrong." even though I knew it was correct. My cheeks burned as whispers spread among classmates. I could hear faint giggles behind me. After class, Tom, a kind boy who often sat near me, walked beside me and asked softly, "Why is he treating you differently?" I forced a smile and said, "I don't know." But inside, I knew the reason. I had said no without saying it directly. That evening, I sat by the dorm window staring at the night sky, wondering if my future had already been destroyed. When exam results came, I felt crushed. I had studied harder than ever, but my paper showed a failing grade. My hands shook as I held the sheet. Tom whispered, "How is this possible? You're the best in class." I wanted to scream, but no sound came. That night, I buried my face in Anna's arms and cried. She stroked my hair and said, "You must fight this. Don't let him destroy you." But I was scared. He was powerful, respected, loved by many. Who would believe me, just a student, against him? Later, I called my mother, but I couldn't tell her the truth. I only said, "Mom, I'm struggling." She encouraged me to stay strong. Her words gave me a little hope. The next day, I went to Professor Mark's office, clutching my exam sheet tightly. "Why did I fail?" I asked with a trembling voice. He looked at me calmly and said, "Because you didn't meet expectations." His eyes were sharp, his smile cruel. "This is not fair," I whispered. He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. "Fairness is not always part of life, Leah. Sometimes choices have consequences." His words cut deep like a knife. I realized he was punishing me for rejecting him. I left the office, tears blurring my sight, almost tripping on the stairs. Outside, I saw Tom waiting and quickly hid the paper. I couldn't tell him yet. I thought of giving up, but Anna refused to let me. "You can't stay silent," she said firmly. Together, we gathered my old assignments, which had all top grades. Tom also offered to help. He said, "I will stand with you if you complain." That night, I couldn't sleep. My laptop screen glowed as I wrote a long letter to the dean explaining everything in detail. My hands shook as I typed each word. I attached proof of my old grades, compared them with my recent paper, and described his behavior. When I pressed send, I felt my heart race. I didn't know if this would save me or ruin me completely. The investigation began quietly. Some teachers called me into their offices and asked gentle questions. Professor Mark acted normal in class, but I saw his eyes burn whenever they landed on me. He called me after class again, but I refused to stay. Whispers spread across campus. Some students believed me, while others thought I was making excuses. Tom stayed by my side like a shield. One afternoon, I saw Professor Mark talking with the dean in the corridor. He looked angry, his hands moving fast but also nervous. My stomach tightened. I knew the truth was starting to break through his walls. One evening, Anna found a note slipped under our dorm door. It said, "Stop lying or you will regret it." My hands shook as I read it. "It must be him," Anna said with a frown. Fear crept into my chest, but Tom encouraged me. "This means he's scared. Keep going." I kept every note, every paper as proof. Slowly, more girls came forward. They told me quietly in the library or while walking to class how he had spoken to them in strange ways too. One girl even cried and said she was too afraid to complain. I realized then I wasn't alone. He had tried this before. Finally, the dean called a meeting. I sat in a small room with teachers and students, my palms sweaty. Professor Mark sat across from me, pretending to look calm, but his jaw was tight. I showed my papers, my corrected grades, and the threatening notes. Other girls also spoke, some with trembling voices. His face changed slowly. The strong professor now looked cornered. When the dean asked him directly, he denied everything, but his voice shook. The room felt heavy with truth. I could almost hear my heart beating against the silence. Weeks later, the decision came. Professor Mark was removed from his position. The college also announced new policies for student safety, stricter than before. When I heard the news, I cried, not from pain this time, but from relief. Tom hugged me tightly and said, "You were brave." Anna smiled proudly with tears in her eyes. I realized my silence had been his power, but my voice had become his end. That evening, I walked across the campus, and for the first time in months, I felt free. Life slowly returned to normal. My grades were corrected, and I passed with high marks. Students who once whispered now looked at me with respect. Some even thanked me for speaking out. One younger student said, "Because of you, we feel safe." I started walking to class with more confidence, carrying my books like shields instead of burdens. Every time I saw new students in the hallway, I thought, they will not suffer like me. My pain had turned into a shield for others, but deep inside the scars remained. At night I sometimes remembered his cold voice and cruel smile. Yet I also remembered Anna's constant support and Tom's loyalty. They were the light in my darkest days. One evening, while we sat in the cafe, Anna said, "You are stronger than you think." Tom nodded and added, "You didn't just fight for yourself, you fought for all of us." Their words warmed my heart. For the first time, I believed them. Strength is not about never breaking. It is about standing up after you break. Now, when I look back, I see my story as a warning. Abuse of power can hide anywhere, in classrooms, in offices, in homes. But silence feeds it, and courage ends it. I was just a student who said no, and I paid the price. But in the end, truth won. And that truth became my real graduation gift. The strength to speak, the courage to fight, and the lesson that no grade is worth losing your dignity. When I walked across the stage on graduation day, wearing my cap and gown, I held my head high. My story had begun with fear, but ended with freedom.